Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Week 18 live stream for, of course, this wonderful Saturday. We have two games ahead of us. We have the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Cleveland Browns, which should be a blowout in the favor of the Ravens, and then after which, we have the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I decided over the course of today's live stream, for the next hour and a half, we're answering any and all fantasy football related questions going into those games, and of course, for the Sunday slate of games that are ahead of us in order to help us capture a 2024 Fantasy Football Championship. I hope you guys are doing well on this wonderful Saturday. Again, the rankings on screen are up to date as of this morning. Sure, there are still some questions to be answered in regards to the status of given players, such as a Chase Brown going into the game later this afternoon in regards to his game time decision as to whether or not he is going to be able to play. We'll keep that monitored, and we'll have the contingency options of pivoting availability. Again, there are players like Chigoziem Okonkwo. We're not 100% certain as to whether or not he is going to be active, but I have a pretty good sense based on all the reports that came out yesterday in terms of who's going to be active and or inactive and who's going to be questionable. There are players such as Christian Watson, Darnell Mooney, like I mentioned, Chigoziem Okonkwo. We're not 100% certain as to whether or not they are going to be available. Craig Reynolds, also another one in question. So, again, we'll keep an eye on that as we get closer to the upcoming games. But outside of that, again, if you guys have any questions, again, there aren't very many of us, of course, participating in Week 18. Therefore, if you have a question, just type it in the live chat. I'm more than happy to help. Hopefully, the rankings that are on screen can kind of give you an indicator as to which way I would go without even having to ask me a question. But if, in fact, you have a question that needs clarification, be sure to go ahead and ask. Make sure you include your scoring format, whether it is a standard, half PPR, full PPR. All-encompassing context will help me answer your questions. And outside of that, I hope you guys are doing well. Let's get into answering questions, shall we? Okay. So, I see Onage to begin the stream. Of course, Onage, welcome. How you doing? Jocelyn, what's up? I see that POV sent in a super chat. Thank you very much, POV. I greatly appreciate that. It says Flex, McConkey, Charbonnet, Wilson. Okay, so that one is a two-parter. In the event in which the Steelers win today, you would play Charbonnet tomorrow. In the event in which the Bengals win today, you would play McConkey tomorrow. And that is primarily because it is 100% contingent on whether or not the Chargers have a possibility of getting the number 5 seed if they win in tomorrow's game against the Raiders. And the only way in which they would be able to do so is with a loss from Pittsburgh earlier today or later today. So that is your contingency. It's either Charbonnet in the event in which the Steelers win or McConkey in the event in which the Steelers lose. As for your next question, it says, is Lamar reliable? If they rest early. I mean, look, here's the thing. I talked about this yesterday, and I'll go ahead and reiterate it. Yes, as it currently stands, the Ravens are a minus 20.5 point favorite based on all the books that I've seen. So going into today's game, the expectation is that it should be a blowout in their favor, and it should be probably starters getting pulled in the fourth quarter. In the event in which they were going to claim a 20 to 30 point lead in this game, you would assume that Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Mark Andrews, Flowers, Bateman would be implicated to scoring touchdowns in their path to doing so. So I would assume if I was in your position, Lamar's going to score. If he scores, 2 touchdowns compared to 5 touchdowns, that is the separation of understanding that we are not 100%, of course, privy to. I'm not a fortune teller. I'm not going to be able to exactly tell you how many touchdowns he can score, but I'm going to assume that if they're going to score 35 points as an offense, 5 touchdowns, I would assume hopefully 3 of them are going to be associated with Lamar, whether they are passing and or rushing implications. Thank you. Eric sent in a very generous super chat, says, thanks for all that you do. You are the secret weapon. Cheers. Thank you. I appreciate that, Eric. Okay. So let me go ahead and scroll back up. I did see a couple questions sent in prior to the live stream starting, so I want to go ahead and address those really quickly if these people are still here in the live chat. Again, if you guys are, do me a favor, click the like button down below. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you. All right. ME earlier had said, hi, Andrew. Happy New Year's. Happy New Year's to you as well. Thank you. It says, I need a running back and a flex and a wide receiver. In my standard scoring league, we have Garendo, Tracy, Pollard, Dobbins, Jennings, and McMillan. Appreciate it. Okay, so of your available options, your wide receiver that I would play would be McMillan in a standard league. Again, I'm looking for touchdown upside, and I think I can find that with McMillan, absolutely. As for your running backs that I would start, Dobbins is the preferred number 1, and Pollard is the preferred number 2. Dobbins only plays in your roster under the assumption that the Pittsburgh Steelers lose today. In the event in which they were to win today, you would be playing Pollard and Garendo. In the event in which Pollard doesn't play tomorrow, the answer is pretty much made for you to where you would go with Garendo and Tracy as your RB and flex, and then McMillan as your wide receiver. So again, a couple contingencies there based on who wins today and the health potentially of someone like Tony Pollard tomorrow. Kyle in the chat says, Happy New Year's. Thanks for helping in Week 18. Yeah, listen, I'm trying to help as much as I possibly can. I know, again, there's not a lot of content in Week 18, but I've tried to I spent like 8 hours yesterday breaking down every single injury report to figure out who is active or inactive, who is going to get pulled early. So I have a pretty good indication as to what is going to happen. Of course, there are still some unpredictabilities going into week 18, but I think I've navigated it pretty well. As for your question, Kyle, it says, so what do we have here? In a half PPR, Garendo or Tyreek Hill. I probably lean towards playing Tyreek Hill there. McBride or Hawkinson, I play McBride. And then lastly, Packers or Chargers defense. I prefer the Packers defense. Thank you. Dylan says last week to watch BTJ. I mean, technically, yes, until next season, which again, hopefully next season, they go and sign and, get a new head coach / offensive-minded head coach, someone like Ben Johnson that can come in and elevate this offense even further where, in comparison to where it currently stands. That'd be fun. All right, let's see here. Scrolling back up. FF says, looking forward to the playoff content. Thank you. Matty P says, if Chigoziem Okonkwo doesn't play, do I play Noah Fant, Jake Ferguson, or Noah Gray? As it currently stands, I'd probably lean in the direction of Jake Ferguson there. Andrew Harper says, I don't know what you're scoring from it as Andrew Harper, but you did mention JSN, Sutton, Adams. Considering it's all three wide receivers, regardless of scoring format, if I was going to pick two to play this week, I'd play JSN and Adams there. Justin McMillan says Packers or Eagles defense or Houston. I'd prefer to play the Packers defense against Chicago. Again, Chicago's offense cannot score on a consistent enough basis for me to feel comfortable on the matter. As of right now, based on the reports from yesterday, in regards to the Eagles, the players that are inactive on their defense, I mean, offensively and defensively, the Eagles and the Chiefs have the most inactives going into this week based on starters. I'm talking about guys like Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Lane Johnson. Okay, so already in itself, they're more than half of their offense. Three of their offensive starting linemen and all their skill positions are inactive. But on top of that, in terms of their defensive players, no Jalen Carter, no Zach Bond, no Nakobe Dean, no Darius Slay. There's also a potential which they may pull some of the starters early in that game against the Giants, like a Quinyon Mitchell or a couple of the other kind of defensive rotation tackles, defensive ends, etc. We'll have to keep an eye on that, but I'm not too interested in playing that as of right now. I just go with the Packers defense there, who, of course, are trying to win in order to try to get a higher seed in the overall playoffs. Let's see here. We had a super chat sent in from Akuma. Thank you very much. Says, sup, Drew. Didn't win the championship, but I wanted to thank you. I'm very sorry to hear that you weren't able to bring in a championship this season, but hopefully next season we can go ahead and accomplish that for you, Akuma. Obviously, we made it pretty far. Obviously, there was probably a couple decisions there that didn't go in our favor, but I'm glad to hear that, of course, you still were able to get to the end. Thank you, Akuma. Let's see here. What else do we have? We had Rob P in the chat who says, pick two in a PPR. Ray Davis, Jonnu Smith, Waddle, Carter, Corum, or Herbert if Chase doesn't play. In the event in which Chase wasn't to play, I would play Herbert today, probably alongside of Jonnu Smith in that scenario, Rob. Daniel Denny says, why so many people not have championship on week 17? Just here to say, thank you, Angie. You won me 2 leagues this year. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you for letting me know, because again, that does make me feel better. Congratulations on that. As to why so many people don't play in a week 8, why people play in a week 18 championship rather than a week 17 championship, I would assume it's primarily because people who set up their leagues don't really change the default settings on ESPN, because I think ESPN is defaulted for a week 18 championship, which again is unfortunate. ME says, hi, Andrew. In a standard league, I need a running back and a wide receiver in a flex. We have Garendo. Okay, so we already took care of that. Good to go. Chris Frazier says, half PPR. Pick one for the flex. Corum, Davis, Mooney, Nico. Mooney had a shoulder injury. He did not practice on Friday. Very much so concerning. Nico Collins could probably get pulled by the end of the first quarter, if not the first drive. So if I'm playing one of these alternative options, it probably ends up being Blake Corum there in a half PPR. As for your next play, says Seattle's defense over Los Angeles Chargers if the Steelers win. Correct. In the event in which the Steelers were to win, every single Los Angeles Chargers that I have ranked right here, whether it is Herbert, whether it is J.K. Dobbins, the defense, Ladd McConkey, all of them would subsequently drop in tomorrow's rankings. So we'll keep an eye on that as we get closer tomorrow. All right, let's see here. We took care of that question. Also, Jocelyn sent in a question, says full PPR. I need 2 running backs and a flex. We have Hall, Carter, Warren, Garendo, Flowers, and Jennings. Yeah, cool. In a full PPR, if I was in your position, I'd probably end up just rolling with someone like Hall, Garendo, Jennings. That would be the trio that I would roll with if I was in your position. Thank you. Let's see here. Pat M says, hey, Andrew, fantasy underdog plays for today. Yeah, let me go ahead and let me pull those up. I'll go ahead and kind of throw them up on screen. We talked about them the last couple of days. I haven't really added any more entries going into this weekend. We had maybe 8 entries so far. So we can go ahead and share those at a quick manner, but let me just go ahead and answer a couple more questions and then we'll hop over there. Green Screen Man says, hey, Andrew, in a full PPR flex one, Pittman Jr., Zacchaeus, or Corum or Michael Carter. As of right now, I play Michael Pittman Jr. going against Jacksonville. Thank you. Javar says, would you Would you start Ertz or Smith in a full PPR? I'm leaning towards Ertz. Yeah, I'd go with Ertz. As of right now, the way that I've had it structured in my full PPR rankings, I have Zach Ertz one spot. Actually, I have him 2 spots ahead of Jonnu Smith in a full PPR because Jalen Waddle is expected to play. So as of right now, I will play Ertz there. I'm fine with that. Thank you. Charles says, shout out to Andrew for all the hard work this year. Thank you very much. You ever consider making a sort of tutorial video for newer players on how to generate a prediction model? How to generate one? Brother, that is... Okay, so here's the thing. That in itself is... It is not something that you can... Technically, I can... let's just put it this way. It's very difficult. And besides the difficulty of it, because it's not just me that has to contribute to it, besides the difficulty that goes to it, I also don't want to share mine because I don't want it to be public because I don't want people to steal it. That's why. Anyway, Sabrina says, where do you rank Khalil Herbert if he starts? Okay, so in the event in which he were to start, depending on the format, let's say it's a half PPR, like it had, my current rankings are on screen. So as it currently stands, Chase Brown sits at RB. Well, on screen it's a little bit different because I've kind of had it in compensated for. So on screen he's RB9, right? Theoretically, in the event that Chase Brown was to be out, I'd have Khalil Herbert at like RB22. I'd play him ahead of DeAndre Swift. That's where I'd kind of consider him as an kind of pivoting option for this week. And it says, would you do Zacchaeus over Keenan Allen? I believe I currently have, let me see here. I currently have him ranked over him. So yeah, I would. Absolutely. I'd be pretty comfortable with that. D-Rod79 says, who do you think has a higher ceiling, Jonnu Smith, Ertz, or Freiermuth? The highest ceiling of the group is either Ertz or Freiermuth, I think. Mainly because, again, I don't really think that Tyler Huntley is going to throw the ball very much tomorrow on Sunday against the Jets, even though Sauce Gardner will be out, and that does help the upside of someone like Tyreek Hill. As for the potential of these tight end play of Jonnu Smith, if he's not going to get himself 8 targets in the upcoming contest, and we have Waddle returning, and there's a little bit more target competition within the overall realm, I think Ertz and Freiermuth probably have the higher upside. Freiermuth has an incredibly advantageous matchup later today against Cincinnati. Again, they're a top 5 matchup in terms of tight end points allowed. Earlier this season against that defense, he definitely had himself an incredible performance. So I think Freiermuth could theoretically have the highest upside, if not for Ertz. Eric says, assuming Brown is out, I plan to start Gibbs, Carter, and Herbert. Okay. Also have Brian Robinson, Corum, Ray Davis, Achane. Would you swap any of these players in a full PPR? Thanks. Yeah, look, as of right now, I'm probably not playing Michael Carter there. I'd probably just rather play Brian Robinson or at least Devon Achane. Ultimately, I would probably tell you to play Brian Robinson and Achane alongside of Gibbs. That's the way that I would go about it. I understand that Brian Robinson's been kind of underwhelming as of late, but considering the matchup against the Dallas Cowboys, they can't stop anybody as a defense ultimately. And the expectation is that Trey Lance probably fills in the second half. So they're already assuming, the Dallas Cowboys are already assuming they're going to be down a pretty hefty volume of points to where they're not even going to be able to compete, and they're probably going to be pulling Cooper Rush out at the end of the first half. So my assumption is, as of right now, Brian Robinson should be able to find himself an opportunity for the goal line and some upside there. As for where I have him projected in like in a half PPR scoring format is around 12 points. So again, as to whether or not he can elevate to that potential and find the touchdown to find that potential for upside, to be determined. But yeah, I would go with B-Rob and Achane probably over Carter and Herbert there, Eric. Alex says T. Higgins seems to be 90 minutes before the game time decision, according to ESPN posts. Should we be... Okay, yeah, so this is my current thought process on it, Alex. So a couple of the reports that I saw earlier today hint towards the idea that Chase Brown is probably not going to play and that most likely T. Higgins will play. The reports that I specifically read said that Chase Brown is feeling incredibly sore earlier this morning, and it would take a lot for him to probably end up playing prior to the game. Again, even if he does end up playing, my concern may be the possibility in which he James Connors us. And what I mean by that is, like, similar to last week, he ends up playing in the game, but then he ends up re-aggravating said injury and sitting out in the second half. As for T. Higgins, again, based on Ian Rappaport's reporting over the course of the last 24-ish hours, the team expects and they're relatively optimistic that he is going to play within the game, even though he is dealing with his own ankle and knee injury. So as of right now, you can keep up to date on the matter. In the event in which, again, he is to be inactive, you can pivot. You do mention, do you fire up Najee Harris if, in fact, Higgins is to be out or limited? you're not going to know whether he's limited. You're definitely going to know whether he's out or not. But as of right now, yeah, if he's going to be out, obviously you pivot to Najee. Otherwise, you for sure try to play Higgins because we know what he's certainly capable of accomplishing. Michael Carter or Jalen McMillan? I'd just play Jalen McMillan there. I think there's just too much touchdown upside associated and correlated with him to give up on that potential. Let's see here. Alex says, nothing really left on the waiver wire in my deep league besides Keyshawn Booty. We have Pearsall. We have Dunze. I have Harris, Michael Carter, Gainwell, Madison, and Mims. Yeah, look, as of the group, Harris and Madison, I think, are your two most valuable prospects within that overall realm. So, yeah, in the event in which Higgins was to miss, you just play Madison. You just play Najee Harris. Otherwise, you could play Madison tomorrow. The only reason I'd feel more confident playing Madison and the only reason I'd ever move him up within my rankings is if the Steelers win today. But by that point, you'd already have played Najee Harris, so there's not even really a consideration of him. So it's either Najee Harris or T. Higgins in your scenario, Alex. All right, let's see here. Ignist says, in a full PPR, flex, Dobbins, Achane, Pickens, or Carter. Yeah, so as it currently stands, considering Dobbins is 100% contingent on the possibility of Pickens and the Steelers winning or losing, you just have to play Pickens today because you cannot risk playing Dobbins tomorrow because of your scenario. Technically, you could pivot to playing Achane. If I was in your position in a full PPR, I'd rather just play Pickens today over the alternatives. Sure, I would love to play Dobbins in the case in which the Steelers were to lose today because then it would give more of a motivation to the Chargers to play tomorrow at a full capacity and have him in there for the first at least 3.5 quarters prior to pulling him after they blow out the Raiders. But as it currently stands, considering we do not know the results of the Steelers versus the Bengals, and that certainly implies more of a potential of, in the event in which the Steelers were to win, the Chargers would have less of an incentive to throw out their starters for the entirety of the game. Therefore, Dobbins would be a lesser option. So Pickens is my suggestion there. Anonymous sends in a question, says, hey, Andrew, just wanted to thank you for all the guidance and the dedication this year. Against a very good team, I finished second, but got $150. I'll take it. Thank you, bro. No problem. Glad to, of course, help you out in any way I was possibly able to do so. Anonymous, obviously, you've been here for quite a while. The last couple seasons, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you, brother. D-Rod says, higher ceiling. Pick 2, Bo Nix, Russell Wilson, or Geno Smith. I mean, if we're talking about ceiling of production, I would assume that is more correlated or potentially associated with someone like Russell Wilson against that Cincinnati Bengals defense. Again, last time out against them, he threw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. So there's very much so a correlation of potential for upside with him. Now, obviously, Geno Smith is playing for the potential of his contract incentives, going up against the Rams defense. Again, the Rams defense does not have any one of their starters inactive going into this weekend. Based on what I have seen, based on the report, Stafford, Kyron, Puka, Kupp, Havenstein, Dotson, and Alaric Jackson. So 3 of the starting offensive linemen and the primary, skill positions of the Rams. So basically 7 of their 11 starters are inactive. As for defense, I have not seen a single member of their defense be claimed to be inactive. So their defense should be at a full capacity going into this weekend's game. Obviously, it is a young defense, so they should be healthy per se in comparison to some of the veterans that may take rest weeks as of right now. So again, it'll still be a tough matchup, but I would lean towards Russell Wilson there in terms of upside. If I'm picking another one next to him, I'd probably go with Bo Nix, primarily because, again, we do have information regarding a lot of those defensive members of the Kansas City Chiefs being, shut down. George Karlaftis, Chris Jones, Drew Tranquill, Nick Bolton. So 2 of their primary inside linebackers, Justin Reed, their starting safety, Trent McDuffie. There's a lot of members. Jalen Watson, again, a lot of potential players that are going to be inactive on the offensive and defensive sides of that Chiefs game. I think they have 10 inactive players as it currently stands going into the game. So I lean towards Bo Nix and Russell Wilson there. All right, so earlier I did mention that I was going to go ahead and share a couple of the underdog entries that we've made this week, just so that you guys are aware. We'll go ahead and just throw that up on screen really quickly for those of you who potentially want to follow. Again, there are many of plays that we've made over the course of the last couple live streams that we've conducted on the channel. The first one being, of course, a 1 yard of receiving for Jerry Jeudy, and of course 0.5, just 1 rushing touchdown for Derrick Henry. Then we have Lamar and Russell Wilson both throwing higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns. We have Evans, Bijan touchdown, and of course receiving yards for JSN. We have receptions for DJ Moore, Neighbors, and Devontae Adams. We have higher on all 4 of these players, as this is expected to be a shootout in Detroit as they take on the Minnesota Vikings. So we have Stafford. I keep calling him Stafford for some reason. Darnold, and Goff going higher on their passing touchdowns, and of course Amon-Ra and Jefferson going higher on receptions. Then we have Evans again with JSN again, with a little bit of DK Metcalf sprinkle, Evans, JSN, and a neighbors play. Again, for those of you who are wondering, just so that we're all on the same page as to how I get some of these numbers in terms of the lines, again, it is adjusted over the course of this week, but just so that you're not aware, if for example, look at the dude, there's a lot of profit boosts here, huh? Let's go ahead and remove these really quickly because we talked about these players yesterday. Just so that we're all aware, okay? So for example, Evans is my favorite play of the week, just so we're all understanding of that. I need to actually refresh this page one more time because I actually glitched it out. So as it currently stands, in order for you to get a adjusted line on some of these plays, all you have to do is click on this little arrow key. The arrow key allows you to adjust it to either take a lower number or potentially a higher number, depending on how you want to go about it. Again, Evans just needs 85 receiving yards to surpass 1,000 receiving yards. So 84.5 is where it sits at. 79.5 is where I've taken it on a lot of the overall instances. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and scroll back and continue to answer questions. Again, for those of you who are joining us this morning, the rankings that are right here literally are up to date as of this morning. Again, they take into account many of different scenarios that have taken place over the course of this week in regards to inactives, in regards to injuries, in regards to understanding how much these teams are going to play based on their current circumstance and their playoff kind of hopes for the upcoming weeks. Thank you. All right, so in regards to the next line of questions, we continue with Javar, who says, last question, McLaurin or Jameson? I'd rather just play McLaurin there if I was in your position. Again, I looked into McLaurin's ankle injury. Again, he didn't practice on Wednesday because he was given the designation was rest/ankle. So the only reason he even sat on Wednesday was rest. Otherwise, Thursday and Friday had full designation of practice. I'm not too worried about him going into this weekend. Carver says, why is Rachaad White 20 and Bucky Irving 4th? Resting Rachaad? No. The unfortunate reality is that Rachaad White has fumbled quite too many times as of late. If you go look at his most recent week of production in week 17, in the absence of Bucky Irving, as soon as they got to a point where they felt comfortable kind of letting the second string kind of roll through in terms of running back utilization, they went straight to Sean Tucker, which again could very easily happen this given week against the New Orleans Saints. But as it currently stands, Bucky Irving is a full-time, he's not only the early down back, the goal line back, but he's also the primary receiving back. So he is at all three phases taken over the backfield. Only when they want to give Bucky Irving a couple rest options here and there, obviously, Rachaad White is available. Now, again, the reason why Rachaad White sits at 20 is because, again, he's associated with an offense that should be blowing out and probably dropping a 40 to 50 bomb on that New Orleans defense. So everyone should be scoring, whether it is Bucky, Evans, McMillan, Rachaad White. There's a possibility that Sean Tucker finds the end zone. If Cade Otton wasn't doubtful, I'd even throw him into the mix. But Cade Otton and, of course, Durham, both their tight ends are dealing with injuries, so as it currently stands, everybody should be implicated for a little bit of a higher upside considering the absence of that kind of receiving option. Additionally, Trey Palmer doesn't get much utilization, and Sterling Shepard is doubtful to play. Let's see here. Continuing on, somebody said Lamar or Sam Darnold. I'd have to play Lamar there. I don't think I can find myself sitting Lamar. Again, if you would want to sit Lamar, that's got to be done on your own volition. I can't suggest that in good conscience. Caitlin in the chat says, full PPR, we have Josh Jacobs or Aaron Jones. As of right now, it says Jacobs is predictable, but maybe limited, while Jones is unpredictable and will play a full game. Yeah, so this is the thought process. If in the event in which the Green Bay Packers were to sit Josh Jacobs in the second half of this game, we would assume that they were going to score and probably be up a 3-score lead by at least 21 points before they are pulling Josh Jacobs out of the game. In order to accomplish that 3-score lead, we would assume, based on the touchdown contributions from this offense as of late, that Josh Jacobs would be implied to at least score one of them, if not two. So even though earlier this week, we've heard a couple rumblings, whether it is from the coaching staff and or Josh Jacobs himself regarding his overall usage going into the season or going into the given week, the expectation is that he is still going to be able to score himself 10 to 15 points minimum based on the contributions that he'll have within the first half of the game. If they're up 3 scores by the time they get into the second half, expect him to play one drive and then get pulled. But by that point, I would assume that he's going to still be a viable top 10 option at the running back position. And if in fact, for example, the Bears play a tough game and they're able to keep it close, we'll see even more Josh Jacobs within the upcoming matchup. So I feel pretty confident there, even with the Aaron Jones situation. Aaron Jones did clear the injury report, but again, like you mentioned, a little bit more unpredictable on the matter. That's why I kind of lean towards Josh Jacobs for the safety play there. Thank you. Cater says, what do you look at when you're picking kicker? I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of variables. First and foremost, weather is certainly one that is implied. Secondly, it's a matter of how high of a scoring game can it potentially be. Thirdly, there's the potential of the variable of how often do coaches want to go for it on fourth downs when they're on the opposite side of the field. How often are they going to go for it inside the 40, inside the 30, inside the 20? Those variables in conjunction with the potential of a kicker making those field goals. So again, there's also the variable of like range and how confident they are, how accurate they have been as of late, and how confident the coaching staff will be in those scenarios. Additionally, again, if it's going to be a high scoring game and there's a high implied volume of points, if it's indoors, it gives a little bit of an advantage to the kicking position. There are a lot of variables. Again, there are probably some that I've missed in terms of what I go ahead and put into the mix, but those are a couple of them that certainly do take priority factor on the matter. All right, let's hear. Jesse G sent in a super chat, says, I will miss you during the offseason. Happy birthday. Thank you very much, Jesse. I appreciate it. Yeah, listen, after today's live stream, we'll have a live stream tomorrow in regards to Week 18 Sunday. Then after which, I'll go ahead and probably put out a NFL playoff predictions video next week. It'll include a couple underdog entries that I'll be making going into Wild Card Weekend, which will be fun. But then outside of that, again, you'll probably see me next August, most likely, because that's kind of how the schedule works in regards to that. But I do appreciate it. Thank you. Walker sends in a question, says it's a two-part question. We have Blake Corum, Ray Davis, Joe Mixon, Brian Robinson Jr., or Austin Eckler. I don't even think that Austin Eckler's active. Is Austin Eckler even active this week? If he's active, we could potentially play him tomorrow, but I don't even know if he is. I don't even know if he was taken off the injured reserve kind of stint. So we'll keep an eye on that. But as of right now, in regards to the potential of what you mentioned here, Brian Robinson Jr. is the player that I want to roll with. In the event in which I was looking for an alternative number 2 option, I'd probably lean towards Blake Corum there, because Mixon will probably play the first quarter, then get pulled. Sure, he could probably score 10 points in the first quarter, but again, very much so an unpredictable matter. And then Ray Davis, again, I don't anticipate him to play more than just one half. I think one half of football is probably what he'll get with. And again, it's going to be with Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback, so it's really not going to be the most constructive offense, with probably a couple of their offensive linemen sitting in the second half. So Corum and Brian Robinson are probably your 2 best players. And then your second question was, I need 2. Okay, so we took care of that. And then Giants, Atlanta, or I don't know what your last part of this question was. Don't see the last part of the question, but if it's Giants or Atlanta defense, I'd rather play Atlanta's defense this weekend. Thank you. All right, let me scroll back up here. Spicy Ice Cube says full PPR, Lamar Jackson or Jaden Daniels. I'm worried about Lamar being pulled early. Again, if you're worried about it, you can go ahead and play someone like Jaden Daniels. I think the same argument can be made with Jaden Daniels ultimately, because again, they're both taking on teams that don't have really effective defenses. But again, yeah, you got to make that call on your own. You know where I'm going in terms of rankings. Again, I have it here for a reason. Lamar's number 1 on the week. Thank you. Let's see here. We had a question from the Beaver who says, Andrew, I'm not playing a week 18, but still tuning in. Thank you, Beaver. I appreciate that, brother. Stroobs says, Drew, getting my ass kicked in the 2 leagues. This is in a full PPR. 2 of each. 1 flex, Achane, Pollard, Garendo, Carter, Sutton, McLaurin, Thielen. So, of those available players, if I'm playing in a full PPR, I'm playing Sutton and McLaurin. Those are the 2 that I prefer, or even, actually, maybe even just McLaurin and Thielen. I'm definitely playing wide receivers in this scenario. I could consider playing Pollard there, but if I'm playing, okay, so if I need 2 of each, I probably in a full PPR, let me see where I have Courtland Sutton in comparison to Adam Thielen, and I will reiterate. Yeah, so as it currently stands, if I was in your position, full PPR circumstance, I probably end up just going like Thielen, McLaurin, Pollard alongside of, do I want to play? Yeah, it's probably Garendo there. So Garendo, Pollard, McLaurin, Thielen. In the event in which Pollard does not play tomorrow, because he is a game time decision, you probably play Achane alongside of Garendo there, Shroops. Harley says in a full PPR flex, Achane, Garendo, Dobbins, Garrett Wilson, Davis, pick 1. Thank you. Of those available options in a full PPR, we want to play Dobbins. In the event in which the Steelers were to win today, you would then at least pivot to probably playing in a full PPR Garrett Wilson at that point this weekend. So it's Dobbins, assuming the Bengals win today. Otherwise, if the Steelers win today, you have to play Garrett Wilson. Thank you. The Blind Side sends in a question, says McLaurin, McConkey, Metcalf, Jawan Jennings. We have Adam Thielen, 1 point per reception. I need, okay, so we need a player here. Okay, so if I'm picking one of these receivers and I can only play one, I probably end up playing McLaurin. In the event in which the Steelers were to lose today, I'd probably play McConkey tomorrow, and I'm okay with that. As for your next question, it says we have Rico Dowdle, Zach Charbonnet, Garendo, or Corum. I'm playing Zach Charbonnet blindly out of the group. Thank you. All right, let's scroll down here a little bit. See some of the newer questions that were just sent in. Alex, what's up? Says, should I be considering playing Najee Harris over Dobbins? Yeah, you probably should consider it. Yeah, so even though my current construction of my rankings are set as such, understand that, again, the reason why I continue to mention whether the Steelers win or lose today is because it's 100% contingent on whether the Chargers will be playing their primary guys tomorrow. Because as it currently stands, the Steelers are the number 5 seed on the AFC side of the bracket. In the event in which the Baltimore Ravens were to win, the Steelers would only have an opportunity to win in order to accomplish the number 5 seed, which again they want to keep because they would then theoretically play against these Texans in the NFL playoffs wildcard round. In the event in which the Baltimore Ravens were to lose and then the Steelers win, then at that point there's a possibility in which the Steelers could win the division. But again, they'll know prior to their game with the result of the Baltimore Ravens activities. Nonetheless, they want to try to claim the number 5 seed in order to play the Texans because everyone wants to play the Texans. So they would try to win. In the event in which they were to lose, there would be a possibility if the Chargers won on Sunday against the Raiders, they would leapfrog the Steelers from the number 6 to the number 5 seed, and they would play against the Texans in Wild Card Weekend, which of course everybody wants to do. So that's why I've continued to mention it at that capacity. Thank you. Okay, let's see here. We took care of that. So yeah, if in your position, I mean, looking at your team, Alex says Dobbins, Pollard, Najee, Madison, or Michael Carter. Considering I have Pollard ranked ahead of Najee, I would say that I'm willing to risk it and just play either Dobbins or Pollard in the event in which both Pollard and Dobbins end up being kind of lesser options tomorrow, because in the event in which the Steelers were to beat the Bengals today or Pollard was inactive, I don't mind the idea of pivoting to Madison because Amir Abdullah is doubtful to play. So I would actually say that you're probably in your best position waiting, Alex, because hear me out, right? In the event in which, for example, the Steelers were to win, okay, obviously Najee will be implicated for a higher point total, but again, we're not 100% privy as to whether or not that is going to take place. We have no clue. We can predict the matter, but we can't guarantee it. Even if Dobbins was inactive, that would give me more of a confidence boost to playing Madison in the absence of Amir Abdullah, because at that point we would know that the Chargers aren't going to start their guys for the entire 4 quarters, while Alexander Madison will be the clear and away RB1 and only running back associated with his backfield for all 4 quarters, which obviously would make him a better play even if Pollard was out. So I would just wait. Play either Dobbins, Pollard, or Madison tomorrow. Okay, let's see here. Combat Central says, I can only start one of Michael Carter, Rico Dowdle, and Isaac Garendo in a PPR. Carter has the higher team total and down 30 for the championship. And I need upside. Any case of choosing Carter over them solely for upside? Personally, no. I couldn't suggest that. Obviously, if you'd like to go in that direction, you certainly can. Carter's been pretty solid in the last 2 weeks in the absence of, James Conner in the mix. And obviously, Carter hasn't even played too many snaps because James Conner has obviously gotten himself more of a workload recently. But as it stands, if I was in your position, I'd probably just, in a full PPR, I'd have a very difficult time not just playing Rico Dowdle there or Isaac Garendo. So I would prefer either of those two blindly over Carter as of this weekend. If you wanted to play Michael Carter for the upside, again, you've got to do that on your own volition. I can't suggest that currently. Corey Simpson says Deontay Foreman or Ray Davis. I'd rather play Ray Davis. Again, Deontay Foreman taking on one of the, if not the best run stop defense in the league. In the case of the Ravens, I'm not interested in dealing with that. So especially in a game in which they're expected to lose by 3 scores, minus 20.5 point favorite are the Ravens. In a game like that, Deontay Foreman is not expected to get himself any utilization on the ground and or through the air. Cheese Kurt says, Andrew, what's good? Thanks for the help this season. One more question. Standard League, JMO or Zay Flowers? I'd rather just play JMO there. Again, that's going to be a higher scoring implicated game. And on top of it, again, his usage as late in comparison to someone like Flowers, definitely more implicated for touchdown upside. Steve says, thanks for all the help. New to fantasy football this year? No problem. Glad to help. Happy Biscuit says Rico Dowdle or Breece Hall. I'd rather play Rico Dowdle there. Mark Andrews or Pat Fryermuth. I'd rather play Mark Andrews. Juwan Jennings, Keenan Allen, or Adam Thielen. I'd play Adam Thielen there. Thank you. Let's see here. Herb says Flowers or Mims in a full PPR league. I have Bo Nix starting. Already losing by 10 plus. I mean, look, here's the thing with with Flowers and Mims. Both of them need to score touchdowns in order for them to be relevant within the given week. Obviously, Mims is very much so relying on that deep receiving touchdown upside in comparison to Flowers that theoretically would just need to be able to get himself a red zone target, which as of late has not been the most consistent product within the offense. If I was in your position, again, touchdowns are very difficult to predict. In a full PPR, I just feel more comfortable with the reception and receiving yard count of someone like Flowers comparatively. Jonas says, do you expect Michael Carter to split carries? No, I don't. Not at all. I don't expect DJ Dallas to get any sort of workload. The only issue that I have with Michael Carter is that, again, they've had a couple offensive line injuries already. Both of their starting tackles are out for the season. And if I'm not mistaken, their starting guard could be out as well going into this week. So again, if you're going to have an entire backup offensive line against that 49ers front, again, the 49ers didn't play terribly last week. Obviously, they took on a buzzsaw of an offense in the form of the Detroit Lions, but going against the Cardinals, I would still expect them to be pretty solid in terms of run stoppability. I don't expect them to split carries, though. Just wondering why he's so low ranked than Madison. I mean, look, Madison's going to have the entire backfield to himself, but the only difference being that Madison will get himself more receiving utilization because the expectation is that if the Steelers do lose today, it will provide more upside in the receiving game for Madison, which I don't expect for someone like Michael Carter to be highly implicated in. If he gets himself 3 catches, I'd be very much so happy with that overall contribution, but outside of that, the upside I don't think is going to be resembled more than 4 or 5 receptions in that overall circumstance. I don't think that's going to take place. If it does, again, that's even bonus points for us, but ultimately I don't expect that to be the case. Trojan 3659 says, PPR, Thielen or McMillan? Yeah, I'd rather just play Thielen at this point. Or Pickens? Yeah, I'm just going to play Thielen there. Feeling Pickens, also noticed his projection go up. Also playing Garendo, need a running back too. We have Swift, Brian Robinson, Carter, Quorum. I'm just going to play Brian Robinson there of the available. Actually, no, you have Garendo, right? Oh, I'm also playing Garendo. I need another running back. Cool. Yeah, Brian Robinson will be my number 2 suggestion there. Thank you. Sin Like Flynn sends in a question. Says, a lot of hype for Michael Carter projected higher than Pollard. Yeah, I don't understand it, guys. Is Carter worth a punt? No, I don't. Again, listen. Here is the issue. Michael Carter going into the given week, I can understand I don't understand the hype. I don't understand it at all. To have a higher projection than Tony Pollard is to assume that he scores a touchdown minimum. At a base minimum, he's getting a touchdown. And then on top of it, probably needs 70 total yards. I don't see it, guys. I don't see it. Again, I could be totally wrong on the matter, but I don't see that the talent of Michael Carter being enough to be able to subject him to being a higher rank than a lot of these other alternative options. Am I playing him over Ray Davis? Absolutely, because Ray Davis is only going to play one half of football. But in comparison to someone like Tony Pollard, who again can play all 4 quarters as he is on a search to get 83 rushing yards to hit his $200,000 incentive bonus, in a game in which, of course, the Texans are expected to pull their starters in the second half of that game, could very easily be accomplished in that circumstance. So for right now, without Tyjae Spears there, there's no way that I'm taking that risk of playing Carter there. In the event in which Pollard is out, of course, then you can pivot, but otherwise, no. Madison or Khalil Herbert if Chase is out. In the event in which Chase Brown is out, I think I'd still play I'd still going to play Madison there. Curious Kid says, should I start Charbonnet or Chase Brown as my RB2 and play the other as my flex over Sutton? If Chase Brown is active, I'm perfectly fine starting both Chase Brown and Charbonnet. In the event in which he's inactive, obviously you pivot. But as of right now, again, if you want to play it safe and you just need solidified points in order to win your matchup, I'm assuming because you play in Week 18, it's probably a 2-week championship. In the event in which you're already up points, I'd probably suggest playing Charbonnet and Sutton, not risk the potential of Chase Brown going out there and pulling a James Conner like he did last week, right? Let's see here. Spencer in the chat says ESPN league with exaggerated scoring. It says 1 point per yard gained. Oh, Jesus, brother. Okay. Pick 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 2 flex. I mean, this really doesn't. I don't know if I can objectively tell you. Okay. Let's see here. You have Gibbs, Jacobs, Garendo, Hall, Achane, Chase Brown, Carter, Herbert. Yikes. Okay. So in this scenario, in a point per yard league, at that point, I'm probably just going to play Gibbs, Jacobs, and most likely Garendo. I'm not even going to risk Chase Brown at that point. As for your next question for wide receivers, St. Brown, Evans. Okay, so if I was in your position, the way that I'd actually go about this, Spencer, I'm playing Gibbs and Jacobs as my 1-2 comp. Actually, you're getting a point per yard. So how many points per touchdown? If touchdowns aren't worth anything, I'm probably playing Gibbs and Garendo at that point. Because if Jacobs isn't going to get a 6-point influx and you're getting like 70 points per player, unless you're getting like 360, unless you're getting 60 points per touchdown, unless you're getting 60 points per touchdown, you cannot play Jacobs. So Gibbs and Garendo will be the 1-2. And I'm playing 4 wide receivers. I'm playing St. Brown, I'm playing Evans, I'm playing London, and I'm playing Higgins. Thank you. All right, Mark Kurgan sends in a question. Says, in a half PPR, pick one, McMillan, Dobbins, or Swift. As of right now, the objective should be to play Dobbins. If the Bengals win, we can go ahead and do so tomorrow by playing Dobbins. In the event in which the Steelers were to win, you would then play McMillan tomorrow. Thank you. Mr. 1972 Dean says, if Chase Brown does not go, what's your thoughts on Khalil Herbert? Yeah, as of right now, I mentioned it earlier, I currently would rank him above DeAndre Swift. Once the rankings filter to running backs on the right side of the screen, you'll see DeAndre Swift, if I'm not mistaken, at RB number 21. I would play him ahead of DeAndre Swift going into this weekend. So that's where I would have him going into today's game in the event of which we would have an inactive Chase Brown. Again, I'm not too... I don't want to get over confident on the idea of playing someone of the stature of Khalil Herbert. But again, he still will be given the full reign of opportunity, which would make him a top 24 option. Touchdown upside would be the implicated factor as to whether or not he gets into a higher positioning. Michael Carter or Ray Davis? Yeah, I'm still going to play Michael Carter there. I have no problem with that at all. That's an easy one. That's not even a difficult one. Bucks or Broncos defense? Again, it's ranked on screen. I'd go with the Broncos defense this week. Zacchaeus, or do I play DK Metcalf? As of right now, I have DK Metcalf ranked higher. Ford Sterling says Mark Andrews or Jonnu Smith. I'd rather play Mark Andrews there. Tristan says Sharps, Neighbors, JMO, Sutton for the flex. If I'm only playing one of those options going into the weekend, it depends on, was that full PPR? I'm okay going Neighbors there. That's fine by me. If you don't want to play Neighbors, the next best option is probably Charbonnet. As for your next question, Reichert or Boswell, I'd rather just play Reichert. Indoors, higher scoring game. Yeah, that's just the preferred. eRich80 says Achane or Ray Davis. I'd rather just play Achane there. Again, here's the thing, guys. Understand that based on how the head coach of the Buffalo Bills has kind of constructed this team and the way that they have demonstrated over the course of earlier seasons in Week 18, a lot of prior seasons for the Buffalo Bills, they've had to play at a full capacity in Week 18. But if you go back to a prior season, I think it was back in 2020, Josh Allen only played the first half of football. Did he score 3 touchdowns in the first half against that Dolphins in 2020? Absolutely. But expect for Josh Allen to only play either one quarter or the first half. So that would also include the likes of James Cook only playing the first half, Khalil Shakir, etc. So in the event in which they were not to score in the first half, in very similar fashion, which they took on the Patriots last time out, it could happen. So Ray Davis is probably only expected to have a full half of participation with the second string quarterback, which again doesn't make him a more exciting play than Michael Carter or Achane comparatively. Says no worries on splitting carries between Brian Robinson, McNichols, and RDZ. Listen, Chris Rodriguez Jr., here's the thing. Did he steal a rushing touchdown last week? Absolutely. The only concern I would ever have is if they're up 3 scores. Outside of that, it's Brian Robinson as the number 1. That's how they've kind of demonstrated it. So no, I'm not too worried about it in regards to the upside early in that game. As for the second half of the game, once they're up 3 scored, I don't expect Brian Robinson to even be in the game. He would probably take off his shoulder pads at halftime based on how this game most likely ends up going. But it's a matter of him being able to accomplish all of the fantasy point output that he requires in the first half of that game prior to them, of course, pulling their starters. Frank says Commanders or Chargers defense. Considering we don't know whether the Steelers have won their game or not because that takes place later tonight, that will be the determining factor as to whether or not you play the Chargers or the Commanders. So again, if the Steelers were to win, the Chargers would have less of an incentive to play their starters. Therefore, you would play Washington tomorrow. In the event in which the Bengals were to win today, then of course the Chargers would try to win in order to claim the number 5 seed and play the Texans. So then you would play the Chargers defense against the Raiders. Thank you. Again, a lot of contingencies left up in the air based on the results of today's games. Okay, we took care of that. Christopher sends in a super chat. Christopher, thank you. Says, thanks for all the help last week. Says, thank you for helping me last week with the championship. Feels good to be a champion. I hope we can run her back. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Christopher. And congratulations, of course. If the Steelers win, do I play Herbert or pivot to someone like May or Flacco? You would pivot to Flacco in the event in which the Steelers were to win. Cody Lambert, says, I need one running back and one flex out of Hall, Rico, Carter, and Jennings. Depends on format. If we're talking about like a half PPR, I could justify going Rico and Hall. But if it's a full PPR, I'm probably going Rico and Jennings there. Tyrone Tracy or Tyreek Hill in a full PPR, I'd rather play Tyreek Hill. Jennifer Sons says, who would be your first choice in wildcard playoff game? Who would be your first choice? What do you mean by that? What does first choice mean? First choices in a wild card playoff game. Are we talking about like drafting players, like a fantasy playoff draft in that regard? Because I've done a couple of drafts via Underdog in regards to like they have a couple entries, and I can go into specifics. So like, for example, let me pull it up right now just so that you guys have an understanding as to what I don't know. Maybe this is what you're referring to. Maybe it's not. But let me just show you guys really quickly in terms of no. We need to go to here. We need to go to best ball. We go to NFL. No. Drafts completed. Here it is. So I've gone ahead and drafted a couple teams already. So like, for example, let's like throw this one up, right? No, that's not this one. Where is it? Yeah, I mean, like it could be something like this. Like this is like a fantasy playoff draft, right? To where I built this team purely on the backs of the Ravens and the Minnesota Vikings getting to the Super Bowl, right? So like this is the team that I drafted, right? It has a lot of Ravens in terms of Lamar, Justice Hill, Flowers, Andrews, Bateman, likely, and then it has Sam Darnold, Aaron Jones, TJ Hawkinson. I had to throw in a sprinkle of J.K. Dobbins because I couldn't get anybody else. But like, if this is what you're talking about, then sure, we can maybe go ahead and guide you on the matter as to which way you're going about it. But it depends. I don't know what exactly you were referring to in that regard. All right, so let's see here. Silver Creative says, starting Zach Charbonnet, Tony Pollard, Jefferson Thielen, Pickens, or Achane at my flex. I'd rather play Pickens there. Prince Caspian says, why is everybody so down on Achane? Tua Tagovailoa is out. Without Tua, there is no Achane. That is just how it has been demonstrated over the course of the year. We have 4 games of representative value from Devon Achane over the course of this season in the absence of Tua Tagovailoa. In all of those games, he did not once surpass 10 fantasy points. Therefore, that's what we can expect from him, especially considering they're taking on the Jets run-stop defense, who last time out against them, he averaged less than 3 yards per carry, and I wouldn't anticipate him to get more utilization in that matter. All right. Bulldog says standard. Pierce, Mims, or Pearsall. I'm going to be honest. I'd rather play Pierce there out of the group. Says pick one for the flex, and also Achane, Brian Robinson, or Dobbins. The objective should be to play Dobbins. In the event in which the Steelers were to win, you just pivot to playing most likely Brian Robinson there as of right now in a standard league. Tristan says Goff or Darnold. Feels like a coin toss, or feels like a toss-up. Yeah, I mean, again, I would say that you're probably right on the matter. As to Jared Goff and him throwing 3+ touchdowns in 4 consecutive games, I think I'd rather go in his direction, especially with the absence of David Montgomery. They've continued to lean upon more of a pass-heavy approach within the red zone comparatively. Let's see here. A Son of God says, quarterback, May, Bryce Young, Penix. As of right now, I'd go with Bryce Young out of those 3. Wide receiver, I need 2 of them. Flex, Sutton or Addison or J-Mo. I would play, out of those 3 available options, I think Addison and J-Mo are the 2 that I'd roll with in that high-scoring matchup. Diggity Dog says, Garendo or Tyreek Hill at the flex. As of right now, I'd probably take Tyreek Hill there. Bills or Broncos defense, I'd go with Broncos defense there. Judy or Mims, I'd rather have Judy in a full PPR. Again, 18 targets last week were not by accident. It's by design. Justin sends in a question. Thank you very much. Says, what is the incentive for Baltimore to play starters? They have to win the division. If they were not to win today, so let's say, for example, if Baltimore was to lose today and the Steelers were to win, the Steelers would win the AFC North and they would have the home field advantage. So they are playing in order to secure home field advantage. So that is their incentive to play today. Securing home field advantage with a victory. Bulldog says Kraft, Pitts, Gesicki, or pivot to Durham. No, I'm not playing Durham. I'm playing Gesicki out of the group. Jennifer Sons says, I'm in a wild card playoff league. I have the first pick, Superflex, PPR, tight end premium. Yeah, so basically, if you're in a wild card playoff league and you're looking to play a wild card team As of right now, I probably say Josh Allen is the best pick. Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, that is the best pick to select in the first round. First pick overall. That's the way that I'd go about it. Otherwise, again, you'd have to then pivot to playing a Saquon or a Gibbs. Well, if Gibbs plays in the wild card round. Again, look, we're not 100% certain. So as of right now, considering that uncertainty factor as to who's going to be winning the NFC North, whether it is the Detroit Lions and or the Minnesota Vikings, that kind of keeps it as a toss-up. I think Josh Allen probably ends up being the best pick as of right now in that kind of super flex format as the first, and or Jalen Hurts, because we know both of them are going to play in wild card weekend. Alex says, appreciate you answering everyone's questions. No problem. Glad to help. Let's see here. Frank says, Brian Robinson Jr. or Michael Carter? I'd rather play Brian Robinson there. Matty P says, in a full PPR, if Chigoziem Okonkwo doesn't go, Fant, Ferguson, or Gray, I'd rather play Ferguson there. Says, hey, he answered it second I typed it. I'm behind. Sorry. No, you're good to go, brother. Bryce Young or Flacco? As it currently stands, again, the rankings are on screen. Where it currently sits at is Bryce Young one spot ahead of Flacco. If you felt better about Flacco playing this week at a higher capacity and not turning over the ball as much, sure, you can go in his direction. But I think what Bryce Young provides in terms of the rushing upside certainly does make him a little bit more of a valuable prospect in the circumstance of a 4-point per passing touchdown format. Says, if the Ravens win, Steelers rest their players? No. Let me tell you again. Let me reiterate. The Baltimore Ravens are trying to win in order to secure the AFC North. In which they do so, which they will, they'll beat the Browns today. The next part of the equation goes to the Steelers. Do they want to play their starters? The answer is yes. And the reason why the answer is yes is because in the event in which they were to win, they would play the Texans, rather than if they were to lose and the Chargers win on Sunday, then the Steelers would have to play the Baltimore Ravens in the first round of the playoffs, which of course you do not want to do, considering, again, last time out against them, unfortunately, the Ravens absolutely wiped the floor with the Steelers. So the Steelers want to win regardless of what happens in that Baltimore game in order to ensure that they play the Texans. Because, again, the Texans are on a horrific slide as of late. And obviously they've kind of fallen apart. So, yes, the Steelers and the Ravens, and of course the Bengals, all three of those teams today have an incentive to trying to win because they have playoff implications. The Cleveland Browns, they've packed it in. As for, again, other teams on Sunday, based on what happens today, we could talk about that tomorrow. But again, that's why we're keeping an eye on these games, as they are so important. That's why, again, the NFL specifically pivoted these games to be played on Saturday. It's the entire AFC North division because, again, there's so many implications with those three teams potentially being playoff bound in the event in which the Chiefs will be able to beat the Broncos. I mean, again, Carson Wentz would have to pull out some crazy production there against their ridiculous defense. In the event in which they were to win, again, technically, if the Dolphins were to lose, the Bengals could be a playoff-bound team. So, again, there's a lot of implications. We'll have to wait and see. Let's see here. Cody Lambert says Andrews or Jonnu in a full PPR. I'd rather just play Mark Andrews there. Kevin says Gesicki or Okonkwo at tight end. Okonkwo didn't practice on Friday, which makes me believe that he has a potential which he could not play. So I'd play Gesicki today. And, of course, I have Gesicki ranked higher. And Sanders or Reichard. As it currently stands, I'd stick with Reichard there at kicker. Neil P says thoughts on Seattle's defense. I think they're a great play this weekend. Again, 3 of the starting offensive linemen for the Rams are out. So is Stafford, Kyron, Puka, and Kupp. Therefore, the Seattle Seahawks defense should be a fantastic play going into today. But again, Sean McVay with Jimmy Garoppolo still would be able to score. I'm not going to say that they're going to be, completely out of the possibility of scoring. I still think that they will be able to. That's why I have the Seahawks ranked as my number 7 defense comparatively. If you want to rank them higher on your own personal end, you certainly can, considering, again, it is an obviously advantageous matchup against the second string offense altogether. So I don't think it's a bad play. If you were to play the Seahawks defense above Washington or the Chargers, I have no issue with that at all. Once we get into the category of Tampa Bay, Packers, Broncos, and Ravens, I could not falter on that point. I'd have to leave it there based on projections as it currently stands. Bucks defense or Packers in a standard? Yeah, as it currently stands, I'd lean with the Packers, but I don't have an issue with you playing the Bucks there. You think Zach Ertz... it says, you think I go Zach Ertz over Pat Freiermuth? I mean, look, as it currently stands in my half PPR rankings, I currently have it as Zach Ertz ahead of Freiermuth by 1 spot. In my full PPR rankings, I currently have it as Zach Ertz over Pat Freiermuth by 1 spot. So, again, I have Zach Ertz as the higher ranked player. Now, I will say, and I will kind of admit this point, it is a fact of the matter that earlier this season against the Cincinnati Bengals, Pat Freiermuth had himself a very solid game. In the performance against the Bengals earlier this season, Freiermuth had 6 catches for 68 and a touchdown, while Pruitt had 2 catches for 21, and Darnell Washington had 1 catch for 10 yards. So, as a combined trio, the Pittsburgh Steelers tight ends last time against Cincinnati had 9 catches for over, what is that? 99 yards, 9 catches, 99 yards, and a touchdown. So, again, the tight end position is going to be utilized. Freiermuth is going to be great. Now, as for the potential of Zach Ertz within the upcoming matchup against the Dallas Cowboys, obviously Zach Ertz is coming off of a burner of a performance in which he absolutely just torched that defense. But last time out against the Dallas Cowboys, Zach Ertz had 6 catches, 38, and a touchdown. He still got himself high utilization against that matchup, and I expect him to do the same this week. Jocelyn says Kittle will play, right? Yes, he will play. Again, Deebo Samuel was designated inactive, and considering they already felt so comfortable doing so with Deebo, that gives me the indication that Kittle, based on his practice reports, will be playing this weekend. And again, with Josh Dobbs, again, we've talked about it earlier, and I'll go ahead and reiterate, Josh Dobbs is very tight end friendly. We go back to last season as the member of the Arizona Cardinals. There's a reason why Trey McBride started off the season so hot last season. It's because of Josh Dobbs. Additionally, afterward, he was traded to the Minnesota Vikings. Once he joined the Vikings, he continued to tunnel in the direction of tight ends, throwing the ball to Hawkinson. So he is very much so a tight end friendly quarterback. Honestly sends in a question, says, you think Daniels will play more than 1 half? Yes, I do believe so. Again, think about it this way, guys. Considering the Washington game and the Green Bay game both take place tomorrow at 10 a.m. PST, both of those teams are trying to play and win in order to secure the number 6 seed in the NFC. If you secure the number 6 seed in the NFC, you will be playing against the Los Angeles Rams. In the event in which you were to get the number 7 seed in the NFC, you would play against the Eagles. So as it currently stands, the Washington Commanders are the higher seed in comparison to the Packers. So in the event in which Washington was to win, they play against the Rams, and the Packers would be, unfortunately going into they'd be traveling to Philadelphia to play against the Eagles, who are on a restful week. So again, both teams are trying to win, hoping that, maybe Washington loses to the Cowboys so they can leapfrog them. But ultimately, yes, both of them are going to play, both have incentive to play. And yes, I do expect Daniels to probably play into the third quarter in order to try to establish a 3-score lead, if not more. And then by that point, pulling him out. But again, by the time he gets there, if you're going to establish, like I mentioned with Lamar Jackson earlier today, if you're going to establish a 3 to 4 score lead against an opposing team, and you're the offensive, kind of general of your team, you're not a run-first team in terms of your running back dominating all the touches. For example, someone like Josh Jacobs in comparison to Jordan Love. When we talk about Jaden Daniels, he has full control of that offense, and anything fantasy related is going to always be implicated with him, whether it's rushing or passing. So again, there's no worries about him as of his upside. Franklin sends in a question, says JSN or Ladd McConkey? I'd play JSN regardless. I could justify the idea of playing Ladd McConkey considering how incredible he's been as of late, but as it currently stands, considering Geno's incentives and Jackson Smith and Jigba's overall utilization, especially last time out against the Rams. Man, my brain is starting to short circuit. Considering his usage last time against the Rams, what was it, like 8 catches for 173 and 2 touchdowns? The utilization in that overall circumstance obviously was in the absence of DK Metcalf, but considering Tyler Lockett has fallen to the wayside, JSN will probably be implicated for double-digit targets in the game in which, of course, we know for sure Geno will try to light up that defense. Ninja Star says Dobbins, Brian Robinson, or Tracy. I'm playing Dobbins there. In the event in which the Steelers win today, Dobbins will be a lesser play and will rack the rankings tomorrow. But otherwise, you're trying to play Dobbins there. Frank says McLaurin or Brian Robinson in the flex full PPR. Got to play McLaurin against that Dallas Cowboys terrible secondary. Cody says Jalen Warren or Rico Dowdle or Jennings or Judy in a full PPR. One last full PPR question. If I'm playing one of these players, I'm probably playing Jennings, to be honest. Liam Schuster says start one Antonio Gibson, Deontay Foreman, Steele, or Chestnut. Out of these available options, I'm not even joking. I think I might just play Carson Steele out of the group. Yeah. As it currently stands, where do I have Carson Steele in comparison to Antonio Gibson? Let me check here. Yeah, I think I'm playing Carson Steele in that scenario. Thoughts on the Eagles defense? Yeah, like I mentioned earlier today, again, there's a lot of starters already inactive. So going into tomorrow's game, Jalen Carter, Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, Darius Slay. There could be even more potential players that are inactive, but those are the ones that we know for sure. With a lot of their potentials, with 3 of their starting offensive linemen, all their skill positions on offense being inactive, and then additionally already 4 to 5 starters on defense being inactive, and the potential of others being pulled by halftime, I think there's a pretty good chance that, of course, that Eagles defense is going to be less impactful than we would like. Hopefully they would keep their guys in the mix, especially considering they're playing against the Giants. But again, we'll have to wait and see. Again, the fact of the matter is the Eagles as an organization want the Giants to win that game purely because it gives the Giants a lower pick within the 2025 NFL draft. And then at that point, they won't be a shoo-in to get a quarterback. They'll have to pay out a lot of draft picks in order to trade up for a quarterback, assuming they would even want one. All right, let's see here. Alex says, feel free to skip this question. Do you think Purdy will have a long-term deal for San Francisco in this offseason? Yeah, I think they have to. I think could have some fantasy relevance long-term. Look, here's the thing about Brock Purdy. Going into this offseason, in terms of his value as a quarterback in the league, the question that always general managers in the NFL kind of ask themselves is, if I'm not going to sign this quarterback to a long-term deal, what is my alternative? Can I get a better player instead? So for example, let's say, throwing it out there, the 49ers were like, listen, we like Purdy. We don't want to have a quarterback on roster that we're paying $50 million to every year. Okay, great. You don't want to do that. Fantastic. Go trade for the backup quarterback, McCarthy, from the Vikings. Go get him, throw him on your team, and ride that rookie deal for the next 4 years because you can have that 5th-year extension. But otherwise, unless you can find an alternative option that is a better quarterback, again, you always improve. You don't downgrade in the case of not signing him. So in this case, yes, I am assuming that they don't find an alternative better option, and they sign him for the long-term deal. Absolutely. But again, you don't pivot on quarterback unless you get a better option. Like, for example, in the case of Kirk Cousins, they knew that regardless of whether they go with Sam Darnold or McCarthy, we're getting a better option. And it obviously has paid dividends based on how Kirk Cousins looked this year and how the entire process with the Vikings has gone. So again, unless you have a better option, you cannot pivot. Let's see here. Jocelyn says, I'm thinking secretly, I get it, brother. I get it. Yeah, listen, again, week 18 is tough. The fact of the matter is there's a lot of unpredictabilities going into this week in comparison to all the other weeks, but this is a gambler's week. If you like to gamble in terms of the idea of risking it all, this is the week to do so because, again, there are so many uncertainties regarding some teams. Like, again, there's always a possibility that Josh Allen can come out in that first quarter and throw 3 touchdowns. You never know. As to whether he does it, who knows? But again, we're not going to rank him because we just don't expect him to play the entire game, right? So there's so many risks involved. Gabriel says, any thoughts on doing any auction draft videos next season? I don't play in any auction drafts myself. I've mentioned this in the past. The last time I played an auction draft was back in 2014, if I'm not mistaken, 2013, 2014. So again, considering my lack of experience within auction drafts itself and the lack of desire to participate in such drafts, I would say that in itself probably inherently lowers the chances of me doing any auction draft content. Because again, if I'm not personally interested in that, I don't know if I'd be more motivated to make good content on the matter. I only want to go after and make content on things that I'm super passionate about, which in this case is redraft formats. So that's why I don't do any dynasty content. That's why I don't do any, auction draft content, stuff like that, because primarily I'm just, I'm passionate about the redraft process and the approach of, being able to capture a championship in that regard. All right, let's see here. Charlana Johnson says, Kenneth Gainwell, Blake Corum, or Ray Davis. Of those 3 available. Okay, so here is the issue that proceeds with this situation. As it currently stands, Ray Davis is probably expected to play in only the second half. And in that event in which he does play in the second half, we'll have Mitchell Trubisky as a starting quarterback, which I think inherently makes him a lesser valuable player in comparison to Gainwell and Blake Corum. But the issue with Blake Corum and Gainwell resides around the fact that both of those starting offensive linemen, or both of the starting offensive 5 offensive linemen going into this weekend have 3 other players already inactive. So both of those teams are going to be dealing with second string offensive lines with those running backs. As it currently stands, I'm leaning towards Blake Corum nonetheless, even though I think that Gainwell could probably get himself some utilization there. Ultimately, we'll probably see a little bit more Will Shipley than we like. Ray Davis, again, is going to have to split with Ty Johnson and James Cook, and Blake Corum will probably have the backfield to himself. I don't expect a lot of Ronnie Rivers. So Blake Corum is my suggestion there. Charlana, thank you. All right. Again, we've been here for the last hour. Again, if you guys have any questions, hopefully the rankings on screen can answer them. Otherwise, go ahead and ask me. Make sure you include your scoring format because that is greatly appreciated in terms of identifying what kind of league you're in and being able to give you guys the best potential advice regards to your format. Appreciate it. Again, this has been quite a long season. Week 18 is definitely the trickiest of all. I would say week 1 and week 18 are definitely the trickiest weeks. Obviously, week 1 is a little bit less tricky because there's no injuries involved. And week 18 obviously has a lot of studs that are out. I mean, just in this most recent question I answered, Gainwell versus Blake Corum versus Ray Davis. Again, this is only a week 18 matter in which you were starting 3 backup running backs in any sort of circumstance. But yeah, definitely a tough situation there. Ninja, no problem, brother. Glad to help. Okay, so let's see what these recent reports are about. In the last 30 minutes here, we've had a couple things. It says Bailey Zappi will start today for the Ravens. Okay, so that makes it very interesting as to the potential of Jerry Jeudy. I don't know if that actually helps. We'll have to wait and see. Cowboys signed Will Grier to the active roster, so that means that probably we'll see a lot of Trey Lance this weekend. What else do they have here? Looking at Chris Olave has been downgraded to out. Understood. That was expected. Austin Eckler has been activated for the 53-man roster. Okay, that is good to know. That was 10 minutes ago. So at that point, we could probably rank Austin Eckler going into tomorrow's game. So tomorrow, we'll talk about Austin Eckler. That certainly does downgrade the potential of Brian Robinson going into the upcoming game. Eagles have activated Dallas Goedert. That's more of a... He's probably going to play early and then probably get pulled. Otherwise, don't expect much from him for fantasy purposes. Cater sends in a question. Says, does Washington want to win this week? Yes, absolutely. Again, I mentioned it earlier, and I'll go ahead and reiterate. Washington currently is the number 6 seed on the NFC side of the bracket. The number 7 seed and the guaranteed number 7 seed is going to be the Green Bay Packers. In the event in which Washington was to lose and the Packers were to win, Washington would then have to play the Eagles in the first round of the wild card weekend playoffs. In the event in which Washington was to win against the Cowboys, they would play the Rams. Everybody wants to play the Rams. Nobody wants to play against the Eagles in the playoffs. So again, there's in line their current motivation. Win so you play the Rams. Indoor stadium, no weather implications, instead of have to play against the Eagles. Best waiver wire tight end in a PPR, Juwan Johnson or Brenton Strange. I would rather play Juwan Johnson there. Again, as it currently stands, the matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is quite an advantageous one. And additionally, the most recent utilization of Juwan Johnson in comparison to Brenton Strange is so much so in the favor of Juwan Johnson coming off a week in which he had 10 targets. Brenton Strange in the last 2 weeks, unfortunately, has been ignored within the offense. Even though back in week 15, he was very relevant. The most 2 recent performances, very underwhelming, unfortunately. So Juwan Johnson is my suggestion there. Bulldog Den says Eckler or Clyde Edwards-Helaire in standard. In the event in which Eckler is actually activated tomorrow, which looks like it's trending towards, I'd rather have Eckler there. Absolutely. I'm not interested at all in playing Clyde Edwards-Helaire going into this weekend. Especially considering, again, outside of a couple receptions, Clyde Edwards is not going to have much more value than that in comparison to Eckler, who could certainly find himself with a lot of rushing yardage and upside in a positive game script as they're running the clock out in the second half. Thank you. Okay, good to go there. So so by tomorrow, we'll have an indication, like the biggest contingencies as of today impacting tomorrow. Steelers winning and losing makes a huge difference. That is going to be the contingency factor as to whether or not we are starting our Chargers tomorrow. Also, again, now that we have information regarding some of these players being out or in, it does give us a little bit of upside, especially with Eckler there. It does downgrade the potential of Brian Robinson. So again, if you've asked about Brian Robinson earlier on in the live stream, expect for tomorrow, when we live stream tomorrow, it'll start at 8:30 a.m. PST. So we'll have an hour and a half live stream just like we are doing today in regards to the potential of just kind of doing the same thing. We'll have rankings on screen with updated everything, and we'll be good to go to answer all those questions and get them prepared for Week 18's kickoff on Sunday morning. Thank you. Flame838 says, start bench cut. Pizza, tacos, and what? Wings? Brother, listen, we don't cut or bench any of those. We just eat it all. I don't know what you're talking about. There is, I mean, listen, if there's a preference, I mean, ultimately, of the group, I'm going to be honest, where I'm at, there's not a lot of good pizza. So pizza's probably last. If it's like top tier pizza, like I'm like if it's legitimately elite pizza, it probably beats everything. But considering there isn't a lot of top tier pizza around where I'm at, it's probably like wings, tacos, and wings start, bench the tacos, and probably, you know, cut the pizza at that point. Because again, there's just not a lot of elite versions as of, you know, this generalized region. Brian Robinson or Michael Carter? In the event in which Eckler's playing, am I playing Brian Robinson or am I playing Michael Carter? That is, I got to determine that. I got to go and I got to re-rack my entire projection model with the addition of Eckler getting in, you know, the volume of utilization that he typically gets. And with that, it could give Michael Carter the edge. We'll have to keep an eye on that by tomorrow. And the underdog plays for today's games. Yeah. Let me go and pop them up on screen just to share it with you guys. Again, guys, if you want my all-encompassing rankings for tomorrow, you can find it via Underdog. If you use code Andrew, make that first-time deposit minimum of $10. That'll be available and all that kind of jazz. Otherwise, in terms of plays for today, in terms of today's games, again, I don't know if I have anything for specifically today. I think this is my only one for today's game. Jerry Jeudy higher than 1 yard in the first quarter. And then, of course, Derrick Henry for 1 rushing touchdown, and then Lamar Jackson with 2 passing touchdowns, Russell Wilson with 2 passing touchdowns. If we were going to go ahead and put together any other entries for today and potentially take advantage of some of these profit boosts, like the idea of Derrick Henry touchdown seems pretty easy in my mind. I would probably just throw like Joe Burrow 2 passing touchdowns on top of it. I don't care about the 0.8 multiplier. Again, I'm getting a 50% profit boost based on the promotion that is currently revolving around the situation. I'd probably try to go in like 6.5 receptions is really high. I'd probably just try to like sneak in yardage in this situation. I got to go look at Jamar Chase's numbers recently, and then I'll be able to determine how I want to go about this. So as of late, in terms of yardage, receiving yardage wise, right? He hasn't gone over 75 receiving yards in the last 6-7 consecutive games. So I'd probably be in the realm of like, okay, I'm cool with just taking him. Wait, is this rushing and receiving? No, it's just receiving. He hasn't gone under 75. So like, I don't mind the idea of just throwing this on top of it. Just make it a very like guaranteed situation in this circumstance. Let me go back to the NFL here really quickly. What else can I theoretically throw on top of this that I feel relatively confident about? I can't take Lamar Jackson touchdowns because I've already taken a Derrick Henry touchdown in this circumstance, which again makes it a little bit sketchier, but I'm very comfortable with the idea with Derrick Henry there. Am I leaning towards, I mean, with Bailey Zappi starting, do I even want to test or tempt my fate with Jerry Jeudy? I don't know if I do. Not anymore. I think this is relatively safe. I'll take the 2 best offenses in this scenario. As for George Pickens, let me see where his numbers are at going into this weekend, and then I'll be able to kind of adjust it accordingly. Let's see here. George Pickens, 4.5 receptions. I feel like 4 receptions should be within the realm. Actually, even besides him, where's Fryer going to sit at? 3.5? Can I get him at 2? Yeah, I don't mind that. So this is 5 legs. I actually don't even mind this as an ultimate play. Is 5 legs a little too much? Yes. For the multiplier that I'm getting, I don't love it. If I remove these, theoretically, what's my multiplier look like? It's not even that much better. Maybe we just leave it at this. Yeah, I'm cool with this. If I put like 100 on it, I'd get 262 in return. At that point, it's just like a roulette spin. Like I'm playing like half numbers and half color at that point. Do I want? Yeah, you know what? I don't mind that. Let's put 50 on it. Let's not do 100. I'm okay with this. So that's a decent one for today. All right, let's go ahead and hop back really quickly just so I can continue to answer some of these questions. All right, continuing on. Let's see here. We took care of all those questions. Let's scroll down here. Devin Lee says, hi, Andrew. In a 12-team half PPR, flex between Achane, Jennings, and Garrett Wilson. Thanks, man. Of those available options, if I'm flexing one of those players, I think I'm legitimately going to flex Jennings there. Again, we've talked about it earlier. Juwan Jennings Let's see here. Jennings and Dobbs. I believe they both played in college together. I think that's what the designation was. So the expectation is that Juwan Jennings should be in a pretty good position to succeed. I also think that there's a incentive for, let's see. Yeah, and also Juwan Jennings needs 77 receiving yards for his first 1,000-yard season. There's a couple incentives there, personally. I think their relationship's pretty good. Obviously, as soon as he came to the game last week, obviously threw in his direction a bunch. So Jennings would be the number one. I'd probably go with Garrett Wilson 2 and probably HA 3. Where do you rank Khalil Herbert if Chase Brown is out? Okay, so in the event in which Chase Brown was to miss this weekend, I would have, based on the rankings that are going to pop up here, I'll wait until it pops up in just a moment in terms of my running back top 36, so I can kind of give you a designation. In the event in which Chase Brown was out, okay, all these running backs, Dobbins, Pollard, they'd all move up one spot. But I would play Khalil Herbert ahead of probably DeAndre Swift. I could justify playing him over someone like Jaylen Warren, but again, it's a little bit sketchier in that regard because I'm not 100% certain as to how much utilization he would get if, in fact, that Pittsburgh Steelers defense is to come to show up and play pretty good run-stop defense. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I'd play him over Swift for sure. That's where I currently have it structured at. What other theoretical plays can we make in terms of entries for this on today? Does anybody have any good entries for today that we haven't looked at? Burrow or Mayfield in a PPR. Again, as it currently stands, I have Burrow ranked higher. I'm going to go with Burrow there every time. It's very difficult not to play him. Like, what is Jaylen Warren's receptions at? Can I get him at 1.5? Nope, cannot do that. I'm actually curious, like, how many receptions per game is Jaylen Warren typically exposed to? So over the course of the last 2 games, 5 catches on each of those games, and he had a 1, 2, 4, 3, 4, 2, 2. Yeah, so 2.5 makes it a little bit of a sketchier. That's why they have it at that number, because again, it's more risky on our end than their end, which certainly makes sense on that matter. I think Gesicki's actually a pretty solid play going into today. Wait, I can get him at 1 point. Wait, is that a glitch? It's at 1.18 and then it's at 1.22. So why wouldn't I just take it at 1.22? Okay, cool. Thank you. I actually don't mind that. I'll take, oh, there it goes. You see, it just got blacked out. I knew it was a glitch. I was like, maybe it doesn't work that way. There you go. So it is a 1.88. Okay. So I have to actually break this because if I don't break it, it's just going to glitch out on me. Let me check this out really quickly. All right. While we do that, let me go see if there's any other questions in the chat. Okay, we took care of that. All right. Is the thing going to load? So anyway, as we were doing, let me go find Gesicki. Is there any other profit boosts? No, it's just for FIFA. I don't really do anything with FIFA. So anyway, 3.5. Yeah, look, that's a little bit sketchy in my mind. The only thought process, I mean, his utilization last game was so premier that I'm thinking can I get him at 0.5 receptions at halftime? Yeah, but the multiplier is absolutely dirty. Look, the only thing that gives me a little bit more confidence regarding Gesicki is obviously he's coming off of a 10-catch game. But last time out against Pittsburgh, 5 catches for 53, which again is relatively exciting, especially considering last time against Pittsburgh in specific, in that game, Gesicki and Tanner Hudson and Drew Sample, they all combined for a total of 11 receptions at the tight end position. So if there's going to be that many receptions most likely targeted at the tight end position from this offense, I think there's a possibility of 3.5 potentially hitting. I think it's a little bit sketchier at that point rather than the potential of just like taking him at 19.5 receiving yards. I think this is probably an easier circumstance, or at least, position to place myself within. As for kicking game, I think Boswell is probably pretty solidified in that circumstance. If I was ever going to put something else together, maybe we don't even do it this way. Maybe we do it this way to where we take him here and then we just go yardage on both of these guys. Like, let's take him at like 59.5, go back, take it. Well, you know what the thing is? Correlation breaks this thing. I think typically what it'll do is correlation will break it in terms of multiplier. Yeah. So let's say if I got rid of him. Yeah, the correlation. Okay, so this is what happens, right? So just so we're all aware. when you put in entries that have multiple players on the same team, let's say, for example, if I was to put like receptions or receiving yards on multiple players from the Bengals, because there's a correlation stacked with it, like if I was to take Burrow on passing yards, the multiplier for my entry, it just doesn't go anywhere. So like as it currently stands, I don't know, you guys can't see it on screen, but I can kind of pivot it up ever so slightly. You see this multiplier? It's at 0.38. Even if I go and I theoretically add Joe Burrow 2 passing touchdowns, right? Theoretically speaking. If I threw that in there, the multiplier literally just went down. You see that? So with this entry, it has a higher outpay than for this entry. So again, the reason why is because of the correlation. Because I have 3 players on the Bengals all being associated with the potential of scoring this weekend, right? Oh, let's not do that. Do this. Because I have 3 Bengals all associated with the potential of scoring this weekend, the correlation itself on their end says, oh man, this guy knows something. We have to pay him less output. So you don't actually want to take too many players on the same team in that regard. That is wherein lies the struggle of putting together some of these slips, guys. So we're all on the same page. Yeah, it's a cheeky business. It's definitely it's very interesting to say the least. I don't love it, but I think I'm gonna go like triple tight end here. Actually, I think I'll take like Mark Andrews. Can I take him at 2.5 receptions? Actually, I don't mind that because at 4.5, I think is a little bit too egregious. Maybe we just, yeah, I think we'll just do something like this. It's a 1.5. No, let's do that. Let's take him at like 25 to 64. I'm cool with that. Okay, that's it. That's my last entry. I got to stop. Okay, continuing on. Let's answer a couple more questions and we'll close out today's live stream. Again, thank you guys for showing up today, supporting the channel. Again, we'll be back tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. PST. Nervous about both my quarterbacks, Wilson and Murray. Neither have played well lately. Yeah, Wilson's been a little bit of a shambles situation, but the defense he plays against this weekend is a little bit more of a promising scenario. So I'd be pretty comfortable going there. But again, if I was to pick between the 2 quarterbacks, I'd just tell you to outright play Murray there. Bulldog says, was that Bryce Young or Flacco in a standard? I'd go with Bryce Young 1, Flacco 2, May 3. And then Cardinal says, there are probabilities of happening overlap. Yeah, exactly. The correlation. Which again, I don't love that is the fact of the matter, but you know, obviously it has to. So that's why, again, you can't even take, like if you were to take Joe Burrow passing touchdowns, you couldn't take Jamar Chase receiving touchdowns. It denies you from allowing you to do that. Vinny Jordan says, I have Khalil Herbert, Jalen Warren, and Michael Carter in a standard league. Does standard league change anything in regards to your rankings? Yes, absolutely. It changes a bunch. As for your situation, if you were going to play in a standard scoring format, I'm just going to tell you to outright play Jalen Warren there. That's how I'd go about it. I mean, look, again, if we're in a standard scoring format, you're 100% just contingent on yardage and touchdown upside, which I think Jalen Warren would probably have the upside above the rest. 26 bands up says, I need 2 running backs. I have Charbonnet, Jacobs, and Herbert, and Najee. Yeah, I would just tell you to play Jacobs and Charbonnet confidently. Thank you. Bulldog says, watching you with league mates. We all had a question. Thank you. No problem. Glad to help. Yeah, that's always the tricky thing. Sharing your secrets with your league mates. That's the tough one. Imagine how my leagues go, guys. I'm still able to win my home league this season. I secured the championship last week with the highest scoring championship performance in our league's history. I think I put up 195 last week. I'm still able to win my own league when people know exactly what I'm going to do because I say it every day over the course of the week. Zay Flowers or Achane, I'd probably rather just play Zay Flowers there, to be honest, Ben. Start Flowers over Thielen or JMO? No, I would rather play Thielen or JMO. Or Thielen and GMO if I can. But yeah, Thielen and JMO are the preferred. All right, guys. If there's no other questions, I can pretty much call it there. I do appreciate y'all coming through supporting the channel. I'll be back tomorrow bringing and providing rankings and up-to-date situations regarding today's games and how that correlates to tomorrow. But again, I'll be back tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. PST. We'll be live here on the channel for an hour and a half. We'll have updated rankings on screen. I do appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel. Again, in about 6 minutes from now, the Baltimore Ravens are going to absolutely mop up the Cleveland Browns. I probably won't even watch that game because, again, it's probably not going to be a very exciting one. And then after which, we'll have a situation in which the Bengals take on the Steelers, in which that'll actually be an exciting game, and we'll keep an eye on that because there's a lot of situations in regards to the playoff implications with that game. All right, guys, I appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your Saturday afternoon. Hopefully, we'll see you guys tomorrow morning. And until next time, we're queuing the double helix. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys. Peace.